Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Rule of Two podcast with a K, about all things Star Wars. I'm your host, Sean Ritter, and as always, my trusty cohort, Aaron Richland.
Hey, everybody. It's been a while, Sean. I don't know what's been the delay, but
we've been slacking, man.
Welcome back, everybody. Hopefully, you've been anxiously waiting for another episode.
Of course they are. Why would they not be?
I mean, we kind of missed out on a lot over these last 2 months-ish, close to, I think. So it's been a while.
It's not our fault. We like to have fun, and
we have been going on trips
things
and
every once in a while,
doing some things that have kind of been taking our time away, but now we are focused 100% on putting out some content and getting things going, and I think now's as good a time as any to do that.
Yeah, we got we got some exciting news recently. Comic-Con's going on, which we'll get into in a later episode.
Yes,
but
we will.
Coming up here in a couple days or a day, I can't remember. We have a new novel coming out.
Yes, July 24th, Tuesday. A new episode or a new novel is coming out in the Thrawn series of books, Thrawn Alliances.
Yeah, and I'm not much of a book reader, but I'm a huge Thrawn fan.
Yes,
for sure.
And that's kind of the impetus to this whole entire episode, right? You're not much of a book reader. I love reading the books. I want to get more into the comics, and so we're gonna take the time to do what we are calling a Holocron Data Dump episode, where I read, or one of us reads, either a book.
It's most likely going to be you.
A novel, but it could pertain to a video game, which you may finish before I do.
Oh, that's fair.
Something like that.
Yeah, good point.
And one of us has the knowledge in our holocron, in our brains, and we're gonna dump that data onto the co-host.
So I'm gonna be kind of interviewing you, sort of.
Yeah, I
mean, in a weird way, I guess. Like I'm Craig Ferguson, and you are, I don't know, Anne Hathaway or whoever the fuck he's got on his show at that point.
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Ooh, there you go. I like Jake Gyllenhaal.
He's
That's
good.
A good one. Yeah, I'm Craig Ferguson. You're Jake Gyllenhaal, and I'm just gonna pelt you with Thrawn questions because I'm.
Yeah. I imagine I'll probably be doing a little bit more of the talking this time around. So for our first episode of the Holocron Data Dump, we are going to be reviewing the first Thrawn book. Well, I guess I shouldn't say the first one. The first in the Return of the Thrawn books, right?
Right, because there were a couple of novels that came out quite a while back that were part of the expanded universe, where Thrawn was first introduced in a trilogy of books that was written by Timothy Zahn.
Those came out. Well, the first one came out in 1991. It was called The Heir to the Empire, and was preceded in the following years by the books that closed out the Thrawn trilogy, Dark Force Rising and The Last Command. Those are some books that really kicked off the expanded universe, really kind of got things going. Timothy Zahn is well known for kind of doing that, and kind of leading some things into the Star Wars universe that have ultimately ended up being canonized. And we saw that with Coruscant, which I think was actually introduced in the Thrawn trilogy.
Oh.
Yeah. And then also now with Thrawn, who was canonized in Star Wars Celebration in 2016.
Yeah, they had that big reveal at Comic-Con.
Yeah.
What season was it?
Celebration.
Sorry, not Comic-Con. Celebration. What season was it of Rebels?
Season 3, I believe.
Season 3, yeah.
It was the trailer for Season 3.
Yeah.
And then that
was
big
a dope
reveal.
moment, man.
Oh, man. The reveal. The crowd went wild. It was awesome.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Thrawn's been a favorite for many years now. And I really like the fact that they're canonizing some of these awesome characters that we know and love that haven't up until this time been part of the universe.
Taken away from us when Disney swallowed up Lucasfilm.
Right. Yeah, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but Thrawn was definitely a big one. That was
he was
really awesome.
The biggest so far.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so, we're just going to jump right in, and we're going to be talking about Star Wars Thrawn, the first book that came out, I believe, 2 years ago. Maybe, 2 years ago.
Sounds about right.
I believe this summer. So, and just so you know, obviously, we're going to be talking about what that book is, kind of what happened during it and any questions that may arise from that. So this is your first and only spoiler warning. If you haven't read the book and you want to and don't want to be spoiled, you will be. So stop listening to this episode.
Yeah.
Don't be a fucking idiot. Next one.
All right. So let's jump into this, man. Tell me, give me a good overall high level view of this book. What happens? What are we looking at here?
So I'll kind of go through a general outline of the story, kind of where it starts, kind of where it progresses through, and maybe touch on some of the characters that are thrown about into the book, as well as how it ends, and possibly leading into something better and beyond the normal Star Wars universe. So
I know that the cool thing that I always liked about Thrawn is you never knew what he was thinking about. You never knew what he was planning, and he always has this very calm demeanor. Like he kind of reminds me a lot of Littlefinger in Game of Thrones. He's like always analyzing every 15 moves into the future. He's always 1, 5, 16 steps ahead, of the enemy.
And that definitely plays out in this book.
That's what was going to be my question. Like, tell me about that. Tell me a little bit about his cunning nature, the part of Thrawn which makes him so popular.
Let me go through the outline, and I'll touch on some of those points throughout this outline, right? So, first of all, this story really hovers around a few main characters. Obviously, the first being Thrawn. The second being a character named Eli Vanto. And I'll touch on him in the beginning of this story a little bit more. The third being a character named Night Swan. Night Swan is kind of... since it's the perspective of Thrawn and the Empire, he's kind of the bad guy, right? He's the guy that Thrawn is really trying to go after. Throughout the series, or throughout the length of the book, he has run-ins with a character that's known as Night Swan, and he really gives Thrawn a run for his money. He's nearly as smart as Thrawn in some of the things that he does.
He's not part of the Empire, though.
He is not. He's kind of a pirate
Night Swan
or rebel.
Wasn't that Natalie Portman's character in that movie? That was Black Swan.
Black Swan, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Similar,
so Night Swan. So Night Swan, what's he like? He, she, species,
And that's the thing. So again, I'll
go
into the beginning of the story, right? So it kind of starts off with Thrawn.
Wait, you didn't fucking answer my question.
Well, I'll get to it, all right?
But I want to... All right, fine.
All right, I'll get to it. No, so it starts off with Thrawn. First of all, it starts off with the Empire on an Outer Rim planet, right?
Which Outer Rim planet?
I don't remember the name of the planet.
I'm going to be doing this to you the whole entire time. I just want you to know.
All right, cool. Can't wait. And hopefully I'll be able to answer some.
I really know nothing about this book. And
actually, I do want to preface this with, in this particular book, I listened to it on audiobook. And I have to say that...
it's so hard to do, man.
It is.
When you're trying to retain that information, at least for me.
It's hard to do, especially when I'm trying to take notes for, an episode of a podcast. But in this book...
and don't take notes, dude. We wing it. Shut up. What are you doing?
Oh, my bad. No. But this book in particular, and I think the same guy is going to narrate the next book as well. He's amazing at voices. And in my opinion, he sounds just like the guy who does the voice of Thrawn in
Rebels.
Yes,
that's pretty sweet. I really don't like listening to audiobooks for the reason I mentioned earlier. I think it's hard for me to retain the information because I don't know. I'm just not like paying attention enough or something. I don't know what it is, but I've listened to a couple of audiobooks where they don't change the voice. It's just one guy reading and the one voice. Yeah. I mean, boring. Not that the voice is boring itself, but it's boring because like when he's reading like the narrative versus when he's reading lines from the characters, there's no difference. So that's cool. I'm like
100% different. He does different voices. That's sweet. It's like a whole production, right? You have sounds, you get music, you get like
really.
When a TIE fighter's flying by and shooting, you get the laser noises and everything. And he does different voices for each character, and it stays the same throughout the whole entire book. So
Okay, well, I'm starting to rethink my
so
doing on my book. I listened to like a Harry Potter one, and it was literally just a guy reading the book.
yeah,
Like it wasn't a
for
production.
the next book. I might get both to kind of be able to highlight places and but also still be able to listen to it to kind of get that effect. So that'd be awesome.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, the reason I brought that up is because some of the names I didn't know how they were spelled, so it was hard for me to look anything up.
Yeah.
Some of the planet names, such as the one you just asked about, kind of went in one ear and out the other because it wasn't
You still haven't answered my
entirely
question.
necessary to the plot. You know what I mean? Just knowing that it's an outer rim planet, kind of close to the unknown regions, is good enough. I can't remember exactly why they're out there. But they end up having...
Who's they? Like the Empire?
Yes.
Okay.
And what they end up... Somebody kind of messes with them. They start losing troopers. Somebody downs a TIE fighter.
And they don't know what's happening or who's causing it.
Exactly.
What at this point in time, where has Thrawn been introduced? Like, do we know who he is or where he is? Or he's not part of the Empire yet. So this is like an origin story of Thrawn, kind of.
Exactly. So, but it turns out this guy who is essentially outsmarting an entire unit of the Empire, all the way through from lowly stormtroopers to a captain. It turns out that it's Thrawn, right?
What do we, when you say unit? What are we talking about here? Like a couple Star Destroyers and like a small fleet, or
I don't
like
think it's
what's
an entire Star Destroyer?
It's not even a Star
small
Destroyer.
fleet,
It's
I think of
not even one Star Destroyer. It's just like a transport ship of some kind.
Because Star Destroyers at this point are kind of reserved for the elite, right? At this point.
Okay, so this is early in the Empire.
Yeah.
Empire's rise up. What are we talking about as far as BBY goes?
You know what? That's a good question. I actually don't know that.
Strike number one, my friend.
We do know. So
Strike number one
is 8 years prior, 8-ish years prior to, or at least it starts. I don't know. We'll get to that.
I honestly couldn't tell you, man.
So anyway, he ends up stowing away on a ship. They find him, and he gets taken to the captain. And
this is Thrawn.
Yeah, okay. They are just enthralled by this guy who is a blue-skinned, red-eyed alien, the likes of which they've never seen before. And there is a
member of the Chiss.
Yes, so there's
that's one thing I do know about Thrawn is he's a member of the Chiss.
Exactly. So they're really trying to figure out who he is, like kind of asking him questions, but he doesn't really know basic, or at least he seems like he doesn't know basic. And he's speaking a language that actually someone in the Empire, one of the lowly troopers who are with them, this guy named Eli Vanto, he can actually understand him. He's speaking a language called Cybisti. So he...
Is it like a Chiss native language, or
I think it's just an unknown regions language that, because Eli Vanto is also from the Outer Rim. In fact, like I mentioned, the author who speaks in different tones, this guy's tone is like kind of a hillbilly sounding tone that they really touch a lot on, because he's frowned upon in the rest of the Empire as being from the Outer Rim, and this lowly guy who just everyone looks down upon, right? So he actually mentions that this creature could be part of the Chiss. Like, he's never seen them before, but he has heard stories.
What leads him to say that he might be part of the Chiss? Like, what does he know about the Chiss that he's this guy?
Yeah, so he's heard a lot of stories from his people in the Outer Rim that is it's all essentially folklore. Like, they're kind of, it's almost as if, like, Bigfoot became real, right? Like, oh my God, this could be Bigfoot. Right. So
the Chiss aren't like a well-known species, basically. It's just like people hear this and people hear that, but like, oh, okay, how's that? And is that really real?
Yeah, and he's like, part of the stories are exaggerated, some of them aren't, but generally the storyline goes that they're a very smart group of people who have military might and all sorts of things, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, this guy, the captain of this unit, decides to take
the captain Eli Vanto?
No. So Eli's just an ensign.
Just some dude.
Not even an ensign. Like, he's not even gone through the Imperial Academy all the way through or anything like that.
Oh, he just happens to know the language that this guy, this mystery guy is speaking.
He just happened to be there. I don't know. It doesn't explain why he's there or anything like that. But he's there. He hears that it's Cybisti. He starts to translate for him. He says he may be part of the Chiss. And, one thing I do want to point out is they ask his name. And he says, my name is Mithron Nuwaraudu. And he's like, but that's probably too hard for you people to say, so just call me Thrawn. But
he's not saying this basic.
No,
he's saying this in this weird language. Got it. Exactly. Got it. Okay.
So he ends up telling this captain that he could be a valuable asset for the Empire, and the captain is enthralled by it and thinks that Palpatine would be really interested in hearing about this and seeing who he is and getting to know more about his people, because Thrawn is definitely into that sort of thing, right? Palpatine is into that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So they end up going to Coruscant, and he meets Palpatine directly. And on the way there,
and this is the new. So Coruscant's long been a thing. This is all the new book. I'm getting myself confused with when Coruscant was originally introduced in the first Thrawn book. So wait, before you go on, I have a question. You talked at the beginning about this mystery guy who's taking down all these ships, and they're like, how the hell is this? Where's this coming from? How was he doing that? Was he in like a single person starfighter of some kind? Where was he?
I did kind of say about that. In this planet, he was there, and he claimed to be there because he was exiled by his people, because he mentioned some unknown kind of force of evil that is out in the unknown regions, and he was advocating for first strike policy, which is, I guess, a no-no in the Chiss Ascendancy, right? So he was
unknown evil.
Yeah, and they touch on this a lot. It's something that Thrawn brings up quite a bit in this entire thing. He brings it up to the Empire, or to the Emperor, about a force out in the unknown regions that will end up coming to meet the Empire, and he's essentially saying, like, so when he goes to meet Emperor Palpatine, he essentially says, I know of this evil. Let me learn from you. We can team up and destroy this evil together, sort of thing.
Interesting.
And Palpatine doesn't seem to really buy it, really, but essentially knows that he could be a valuable asset, because in this meeting, Thrawn mentions to Palpatine that he knew and met a general from the Clone Wars named Skywalker.
Yeah. What?
And he said that that Skywalker spoke highly of the Chancellor Palpatine, and that's why he wanted to go to him directly, so that he could talk to him directly, right?
Okay, so this was when Thrawn was... How old is he in this book? Because Thrawn? I didn't think he was very old in Rebels. And if he met Anakin Skywalker during the Clone Wars, he must have been a teenager during the Clone Wars.
I don't know.
Presumably,
they really don't describe his age, right?
Interesting.
So in this exchange, when he references General Skywalker, Palpatine says, "it is you who." Blah blah blah, as if he had heard reports from Skywalker about a cunning general that he met in the unknown regions in his trip.
Do you think we'll see Thrawn in the newest season of Clone Wars?
I don't know. Maybe we'll get to.
Yeah, I'm jumping ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm getting excited.
In this exchange, Palpatine informs Thrawn that Anakin died, that he is no more, and Thrawn was bummed because he liked Skywalker and thought he was a good warrior and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, long story short, Palpatine agrees to have him join the military academy. And Thrawn asks if he could take Eli Vanto with him, who has to this point been acting as his translator. No. So wait. At this point, when he's talking to Palpatine, is he speaking basic? Basic, yeah.
Now he's speaking basic.
Yeah. And
is it like to the point where he knows it fluently, or he's like trying to pretend that he doesn't really.
That's a point that is kind of, I believe it's already brought up at this point, where Eli and Thrawn are talking by themselves, and he's like, "Why do you need me? Like, you speak perfect basic." And he's like, "Well, I'm still trying to get the hang of, the idioms and all the catchphrases and stuff like that." So, like, for example, he'll be talking and he'll be like, he'll look at Vanto, say it in Cybisti, and then Vanto will be like, "Computer," and he'll be like, "Computer," and then he just knows it from then on out. Like, he doesn't have to do it again.
But is that really true, or is he just fucking with him to make everyone think that he's stupid?
I don't know.
We don't know at this point.
Okay. We know that he wants his translator to be with him. So Eli Vanto and Thrawn get put in the Imperial Academy on Coruscant, the Imperial Royal Academy. That is like the top of the line academy. Now Vanto is surprised. He's some nobody from the Outer Rim that was on a trajectory to be like a supply officer, right? And now he's on the Imperial Royal Academy, kind of following around this guy that's on a trajectory to be, he ultimately ends up being Grand Admiral. Right.
Do you know, like, sorry, this is a little off topic, but do you know the order of power in the Empire? Like Lieutenant, Admiral, Grand Admiral, blah, blah, blah. It's like Grand Admiral Thrawn, Grand Admiral. Yeah. Actually, no, it's Grand Moff Tarkin. So it's like a Grand Moff higher than Grand Admiral.
So admirals are military, Moffs are like government.
Oh, interesting. Because Tarkin was Admiral Tarkin during the Clone Wars.
I don't know.
Wasn't honestly. It?
Could have been.
Like back when he was still like, answering to General Kenobi and General Skywalker.
I honestly don't remember. It makes sense because he's, in episode 3, he's at the end of that, right? And on the Star Destroyer and all that.
Right. Oh, just curious. No big deal. Continue.
But anyway, so now they go through the academy together, essentially, right? And just keep in mind that not only does the Empire look down on, the people that are around them look down on, Eli Vanto for being from the Outer Rim. Even worse yet, they look down on Thrawn because he's from the Unknown Regions and he's non-human. And not to mention he's a non-human that no one's ever seen before, right?
Yeah, no one really knows about the
Who kind of comes in, and not only who kind of
is the Empire mostly human?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's not actually something. All
of them.
It makes sense, I guess. It's just weird to think about in a giant galaxy that the Empire really only is mostly made up of human.
Yeah, so it's kind of it's not like it's like an unspoken thing where they kind of look down on non-humans. Right? Yeah. Most officers in the book, not all of them. Most of them, I think all of them are human, and most of them are white males, right? So there are a few women officers and all that, but
so the Nazis.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, they're kind of based on that. But pretty much everyone hates them, right?
Hates Thrawn and Vanto.
But so Thrawn comes into the academy and he's immediately granted the rank of lieutenant, right?
Immediately. Without having to do anything.
Gives him a lieutenant placard.
Why?
They don't know.
We don't know at this point.
It's not really seen as to why, right? We kind of... I don't know if they ever really.
He just sits down in class and they're like, "Oh, hey, Thrawn, come on up here. I have a badge to give you."
He meets essentially the principal of, I can't remember the guy's name, of the academy, and he gives him a lieutenant placard, as if it's like directed from higher above. Like he doesn't want to give it to him.
So, my immediate thought is Palpatine saw right through any ploy Thrawn might have been trying to pull over their eyes and was like, this guy's going to be great. You need to give him a lieutenant position immediately,
he knows the story from Skywalker, knowing that this guy's a genius and he could be useful.
So
he still has to go through the ranks, right?
So do we think that it was maybe Palpatine's doing that he immediately became a lieutenant?
In summary, him and Vanto don't really have the best time there. The first time Thrawn shows his excellency, his excellent brain skill. Is kind of they get invited to a gambling game with fellow ensigns. Well, Vanto's an ensign, everyone else is an ensign, Thrawn is a lieutenant. But I don't think anybody at this point knows he's a lieutenant. He doesn't wear the lieutenant badge. He puts it away.
Oh, really?
And it's kind of like, oh, why? What's that all about? We find out later on when these people invite him to a gambling game. It's illegal. They can't do that.
They're not allowed to get
these
gamble in the
ensigns,
academy.
Yeah, these ensigns are kind of assholes. They don't really like them. They are sons of big political people. Like I think one of them is the son of a senator from Coruscant. So like powerful people, right?
Okay.
And then a teacher walks in during the game, and they try to pin it on Vanto and Thrawn, but Thrawn pulls out his fucking lieutenant's badge and turns around, and he outranks the teacher, and he's like, "Oh no, everything's good here," essentially. And everyone's like, "What the fuck?" Like, because the teacher was clearly in on it. It was like he was in on it with the students to catch them in an act of, something illegal to kick them out of the academy.
So it's like the students and this teacher didn't like the fact that there were these non-humans, people from the Outer Rim, unknown regions there, so they set them up, basically.
They set them up, yeah.
And it totally backfired because Thrawn outranks all these fuckers.
And, they get taken to essentially the principal. Well, first of all, they're walking there, and they get attacked by 3 people, and I think
who gets attacked?
Thrawn and Vanto.
They walk into wait, I missed something. They walk into
they're
where?
Going to talk to I can't remember the guy's name. He's essentially the principal of the academy.
And this is after this
right
gambling
that,
game.
Yeah.
They leave and then they go
get attacked. Thrawn sees it, pushes Vanto off, he almost falls over a ledge, and he's essentially getting his ass beat. And Thrawn helps out. I can't remember how they do it. I think other people see it, and those 3 run off, but they're wearing masks.
The 3 who ran off were the ones who were wearing masks.
Yes, exactly. And so anyway, they go to talk to this principal
the head of the academy,
and they know that they set him up, and instead of getting them kicked out or whatever, the guy's feeling the effect of the politics involved with the fact that it was the senator's son or whatever, but Thrawn essentially says, don't worry about it, just transfer them to the the flight academy, because I feel like
transfer them meaning Thrawn and
the 3 people who attacked them, transfer them to the flight academy.
So Thrawn walks into this guy's office, who's the head of the academy, and tells him what to fucking do.
Well, he's like, yeah, essentially, and he does it because he's like, I feel like they're good pilots, and the guy's like, I feel the same way. And that's the first time that we see Thrawn in the Empire kind of use his intelligent brain to kind of outmaneuver the people that are trying to screw him over, right? So anyway, they go through Imperial Academy. They go through 4 years of Imperial Academy in 3 months. Both him and Vanto.
Holy crap.
Yeah. So then they're out after graduation, and they are assigned, they go to see where they're assigned. They think they're parting ways, and Thrawn is appointed as first officer, which is above lieutenant, so he's already promoted. This
is
right off
3 months into the academy,
and Vanto is appointed. He thinks he's going to be, going back to where he came from. So, like I said, he's from the Outer Rim. His family owns some shipping company, so he thinks he's going to go into shipping logistics because he's good with numbers and all that. And he's appointed as the aide to First Officer Thrawn.
Oh, shit.
He's pissed.
He's pissed? He doesn't like that? Why?
Because he didn't want this. He didn't want to be at the Royal Academy. He didn't want any of it.
Why did he go with Thrawn then?
He was told to by Emperor Palpatine.
Oh, I thought Thrawn was one hey, I want you to come with me.
Essentially, yeah. I mean, so he was like, I want Vanto to come with me. And Palpatine's like, okay. And I mean, he can't say no.
And Vanto doesn't like Thrawn?
It's not that he doesn't like Thrawn, it's that he had a career trajectory that his family was happy with, that he was happy with, and it was he was just taken away from that.
Okay.
So, from there they are given their first assignment, and before that, Thrawn, we see in Rebels, Thrawn has a clear interest in art, a clear interest in a lot of things from the galaxy that he doesn't know much about.
Right.
And he's very interested in Clone Wars technology. He bought these things called the buzz droids, right? Remember the buzz droids?
I remember the buzz droids.
Latch onto the chips. He bought, I believe, 2 or 2 to 4 of them, and they were a specific kind of buzz droid that was made with this metal called dunium. He was very interested in dunium.
Not all buzz droids are made with this?
No, because it's a very expensive metal.
Why were buzz droids, who were seemingly kind of a worthless droid,
not really sure,
made of a super expensive...
I believe maybe the buzz
rare
droids were...
metal.
Either way, he had some buzz droids.
Okay.
There was a lot of interest in them and a lot of Clone War tech because of certain things being made with dunium. He sees this kind of connection of dunium in the Empire that he's not really sure about. So he buys these buzz droids. The captain of the ship he's on finds them, tells him to throw them out, but he's like, "Whoa, there's dunium in them," and he like knows that the captain's thinking in her head. He's like, "Well, first of all, there's dunium in this, and also anything on this ship is yours, right? Like you're the captain, you could just take it."
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "Oh, you're right. Okay, don't throw them away. Fix them up, and blah blah blah." Right? Because he knows that
he's
dunium,
telling the captain this of the ship that he's on.
Dunium is expensive, and that he's playing to her, knowing that she would want that to sell him. He essentially makes some money.
Okay.
So anyway,
dunium sounds a little bit like droid space poop.
Oh god, bunch of dunium up here.
Look at all this dunium floating
Smells
around.
like fucking dunium.
That droid just took a massive dunium.
So they're going on their first assignment. There's these pirates that are smuggling Tabana gas, highly explosive. So they board this ship. It's empty except for one guy who doesn't freak out.
Dude, how the fuck do you remember Tabana gas, dunium? Are you looking at like a Star Wars encyclopedia that I don't fucking know
Star Wars
about,
nerd,
man?
that's for sure.
Okay, well, yeah, I am too, but like, you must just be on a different level, and I'm just not
I've read
realizing
a lot of books
this.
and stuff.
Maybe I should start reading more fucking books, because
should.
you're just like throwing out a lot of buzzwords, and I'm like, what the fuck is this? What the fuck is that? What the fuck is this? What the fuck is dunium? Dunium space poop, for all I know. So, all right, keep going.
Anyway, they find this guy, and they essentially, tell him, they think he's part of the ship that was overrun by pirates and was hiding. And
they find this guy. Wait, I'm missing something. Where do they find this guy?
So the pirates, they're going to their first assignment where pirates stole a bunch of dunium from a ship. So they board the ship. There's a guy in there. It turns out this guy's the head of the pirates. Like, he turns it around on them because not all the stormtroopers except for Vanto and Thrawn leave, and maybe a couple other officers, and he turns it around on them, points out a gun, and says "Hey, I'm the head of the pirates. We're stealing everything."
Oh,
and his people come in, and
the pirate guy.
Yeah, they lock them up, and he heads off, and
so Thrawn and Vanto are in a cell.
I mean, it looks like they're about to die, right?
Shit.
I mean, it's a sad day in the Empire. Grand Admiral Thrawn is not going to happen, except he pulls out his original lieutenant badge, which he repurposed to be this calling communicator.
This beacon thing?
Yeah, beacon.
Oh.
Clicks it. Buzz droid comes in, eats through the bars, eats through the person that's guarding them, and because it's trying to get to the beacon, right? So they throw the beacon out, and another buzz droid comes in, and they're essentially freed, right? So
holy
it's
shit.
He got reprimanded. He actually had to get court-martialed because
Thrawn did by the Empire.
By the Empire, because he
escaped
he ends up getting freed. They did what they were supposed to do, except they didn't get the Tabana gas back because the head of the pirates managed to somehow smuggle them out of the gas canisters without opening up the gas canisters.
Oh,
I forget. They explain how they do that later on, but that's the first time Thrawn is kind of throttled by somebody.
So why did Thrawn stay behind just to get captured when all the other stormtroopers left, and just for him to get court-martialed?
Because they were going to go get the Tabana gas, and
so he got court-martialed because he did something stupid and didn't get the gas.
Yeah, but he was cleared of all charges. He's actually court-martialed a bunch through all this. That's one of the first things that we see of Thrawn kind of being this genius. And we actually see it little things throughout the entire thing, right? Well, actually, let me kind of back up. I mentioned there's a bunch of main characters in this, right?
Yes.
A bunch of characters that it follows.
Yeah.
Commander Thrawn, this Night Swan character, Vanto, and the fourth one is Orinda Price.
Orinda Price.
Governor Price from Rebels.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
So it starts out with her kind of being essentially a nobody, right? She's from Lothal, right? Her family owns a mining company. The senator from Lothal kind of screws her. Well, first of all, Governor Azadi, he's the governor that is in the Rebels towards the end, where we think he's an asshole, but he's not.
Yep.
And they arrest her mom because they think she's been cooking the books.
Price?
Yeah. So there's this whole thing. She has to go speak to the senator, and the senator essentially steals the mine from them for the Empire, right?
Okay.
And she's mad, but she ends up going to Coruscant, where kind of she wants to be. Like, she didn't want to be on Lothal. She hated it. She wanted something bigger and better for her life. So she goes to Coruscant, and she ends up working her way up to working for Senator Ranking, is the guy's name, who stole the thing from her. And there's a lot of politicking involved, and she meets Thrawn at the graduation. That's kind of where their whole relationship starts.
Yeah.
And she actually kind of gets tricked again by Senator Ranking wants to send her to a Moff to essentially put in a chip to spy on the Moff. The Moff catches her. She ends up losing her job, gets thrown out, and essentially has to work her way back up again from the bottom, right? So she goes and she's on like the lower levels of Coruscant, and she gets a shitty like temp job essentially, and she works her way up, and she actually meets people, or she met some people while she was working for Senator Ranking, and she becomes friends with them. And I really believe that she was very, very friendly with them. Like, she actually really liked them. So she loses the job, and then she essentially gets another job for working as a diplomat to a non-profit sort of thing. It's called Higher Skies, right? And this Higher Skies, in this, she already had a lot of contacts of senators and all this other stuff that she uses to kind of get information on. And little does she know that Higher Skies is actually spying on them, essentially what I think is as a rebel group. And she doesn't know it.
Higher Skies is the rebel group?
Yeah.
Fuckers.
I know. And then, so what she ends up doing is she ends up finding out about this. She speaks with Governor Turkin, or Grand Moff Turkin, I think.
Is he Grand Moff at this point?
It's Grand Moff at this point. And she kind of uses this information, uses what she knows from this Moff Gotti, and she gets him to promise her governorship of Lothal, right? And she says something like her first order of business as this new governor. One thing that kind of gave Tarkin confidence in her was she actually turned on her friends. She arrested them as traitors to the Empire. And her friend, dude. I know, she says something like, someone's like, was I ever your friend or just a tool? And she says, yeah, you're my friend, which is why you're going to be locked away in prison for the rest of your life and not executed.
Oh my god.
She says how she's like on the road to power now, and she doesn't need people like them. So
what a bitch.
She kind of, so there's one thing where I think Thrawn did a good job of showing Orinda, like the book Thrawn shows Orinda going from this kind of aspiring young, like enthralled by the city life of Coruscant to this just ruthless Imperial that we see in Rebels. Right.
What ends up happening to her in Rebels? Does she get fucked? Does she like die? She dies, doesn't she? Does she like?
She dies. Did she die?
Was she on the ship? Man.
She might have been on the ship that gets blasted off.
Yeah, she was. She was on that ship. Yeah, so she does die. Presumably. Anyway,
we're kind of running pretty long here, so I'm gonna kind of speed through some of the rest of this. Where Thrawn goes back to Coruscant, meets with the Emperor Palpatine, and then almost every time he comes away with a new promotion, right? So in every single time, Vanto is not. He keeps being ensign when like Thrawn gets to lieutenant commander to Commodore or whatnot.
Yeah.
and then
So
eventually...
Vanto is not being promoted throughout this whole entire time. He's
Exactly.
still at the same
It's
level.
all politics involved. Everyone is saying, we can't get to Thrawn because he seems to be untouchable. So we'll just screw over his aide.
Vanto.
Yeah. And it's another thing that leads
and
to...
Thrawn doesn't go and fuck them?
No, because that's one thing. He's amazing at military stuff. He's amazing at all this stuff, like all of that stuff. He's the best at it, right? Outsmarting his opponents on the military battlefield. But he's not good at politics. That's one thing Vanto can help out with. And that's one thing that I think really fosters his relationship with Orinda. She realizes, she says something to him along the lines of, through all your military might, you really don't know what you're doing with politics. And she's like, I can help you out with that. And she's actually the reason why he ends up coming to Lothal. Like, they want to get a military presence on Lothal because she wants money, essentially. And she goes to Thrawn to help her get those military people to come to Thrawn, or to Lothal. But anyway, kind of back to this. They do a bunch of jumping around, or a bunch of promotions throughout the book, where where he goes from lieutenant commander to commodore to captain, from lieutenant commander to captain, and then captain to commander, and all of those, like captain to commodore, would take 10 years in itself to do. Lieutenant to captain would take 6 years in itself to do. But he's doing it in the span of, I believe 2 years. He went from lieutenant to commodore. And then commodore to admiral to grand admiral at the end of the book.
Damn.
Right? So anyway,
how is he doing this? Is it just like Palpatine fucking throwing him a bone the whole time?
A lot. So there are a few things that I can't remember the details around them, where he's outsmarting pretty much everyone. They do kind of go into detail around some of them. A lot of them they don't. But when the ones they do go around, it's always around this Night Swan guy, right? Kind of.
I keep forgetting about this Night Swan motherfucker.
Yes. And they end up finding him. He sends Vanto in by himself, but doesn't tell him it's Night Swan. He opens up the door, to this pirate ship again, right? And he sees the same guy from the first assignment. Signy was his name. And he's like, what the hell?
The pirate captain guy?
Yeah, he's like, I didn't...
Who stole all that gas?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Turns out he's Night Swan. He's found out about the Empire hoarding all this dunium. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't know why. And he's like, what reason could they be hoarding all this dunium from? Of which I forgot to mention.
Who finds out? Thrawn?
Night Swan. Night Swan does.
Night Swan finds out about. Okay,
yes.
okay. And Thrawn knows who Night Swan is.
He did, but he didn't tell Vanto.
So what? Why is he? I'm confused. Why is he called Night Swan? What's the whole point of
code name that he gave himself to hide from the Empire?
So why are they after this guy?
Because he's a pirate that's essentially a rebel.
And they didn't know that this guy was Night Swan the first time they met him?
Not the first time, no. They didn't know anything about Night Swan then.
Okay.
So, one thing I did forget to mention is each start of each chapter, it's essentially a monologue from Thrawn. He's talking about, tactics in the military, tactics in understanding your opponent, and besting your opponent, stuff like that. Each chapter is something different. And it's very cool. It's very, I would like to compile them all together and just listen to that, because every time it's like, wow, this guy's fucking smart,
really good. Yeah.
So, and a lot of it always pertains to the chapter, and kind of towards the end of the book, Thrawn meets with Night Swan by himself, and in that he tells him about the threat to the Outer Rim, the threat in the unknown regions that's coming in, and where, how that's something that the Empire is going to face one day.
Night Swan tells Thrawn about it?
No, Thrawn is telling Night Swan about this.
Why is he telling Night Swan,
because
helping him out?
It was one thing that always bugged Thrawn, is that Night Swan kept outsmarting him. Right? And it's crazy because he goes to Night Swan without telling anybody that he's going to go meet him. And he essentially offers him a job. Like, go to my people and help them.
Go to the Chiss?
Yes.
Like, he's basically going behind the Empire's back.
Kind of, yes.
Interesting.
So he essentially doesn't know, or no one knows he's going, except the head of the ISB, Imperial Security Bureau, which is kind of like the internal affairs of the Empire, catches him, and Thrawn maneuvers his way out of it. I can't remember exactly how, but it was really cool. And so that's the first thing where we see. So
Thrawn's not really loyal to the Empire.
Not really. It was kind of what I'm getting at, right? Or it's kind of what it seems like. He doesn't seem to be entirely loyal to the Empire.
He's just using it to his advantage, basically. That this is the most advantageous move for him, so he. And in
this, he actually explains everything, right? He essentially knew at one point he saw Nemoidians hiding on a planet somewhere. And that's where he learns it's the Nemoidians exiled from the Clone Wars, right? They explain a lot to him. He explains that he actually wasn't exiled, that he took the information he got from the Nemoidians, went back to the Chiss Ascendancy, and they were like, we need to find out more about this empire, so we're going to act like you're exiled. You're going to go, you're going to talk to them, you're going to get as much information as you can. He did not expect to be given a position in the Empire. He didn't expect any of that, right?
Wow.
He thought...
So basically all of the Chiss are just like brilliant motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he thought Vanto was actually planted by the Nemoidians. So that's why he got such an interest in Vanto.
Oh, because he was trying to see if he was actually like a spy. But
along the way, he found Vanto had a mind for this sort of thing, right? So that's why even when he found out later that he wasn't planted by the Nemoidians, or when he deduced that he wasn't,
he still kept him around.
Because throughout the book, that's kind of one of the reasons why I brought up that those things in between the chapters. It's like he's teaching Vanto to be more tactically sound, right?
Interesting.
So, long story short, he goes to Palpatine because again Thrawn. He goes. Oh, first of all, Night Swan turns down the offer and goes along his way. I can't remember. Okay. I think he's actually in some of the Thrawn comics. He shows up in some Thrawn comics, which I want to read. I haven't read yet. But so I don't think he dies. So, at the end of the day, Thrawn goes to Palpatine. Like I said, he had this interest in the Dunium. He knew Night Swan was looking at the Dunium. He knows Lothal has the Dunium. Do we know
at this point what's with the Dunium and why it's so valuable?
He goes and he essentially asks Palpatine, and he's like, I want you to tell me about the Death Star. He's like, I know that's why all the Dunium's gone, why it's like created such a black market. The Empire is mining all the Dunium it can to help build the Death Star.
What is it about Dunium that's essential to building a rare superpower weapon?
Very powerful, very strong. That helps it.
Interesting.
Vader shows up in this meeting, and he's like, "Oh, I don't think you've actually met Darth Vader yet. Darth Vader, this is Grand Admiral Thrawn." Because Thrawn ended up thralling Night Swan. He kind of goes off on his own thing, and Vader's like, essentially, nice to meet you. But underneath, like, bitch, I already met you. You ain't shit. No. Anyway.
Does Thrawn recognize that it's actually General Skywalker?
I don't know, actually. Now, the epilogue, so that's essentially the end of the book.
That's the end of the book.
Yes. The epilogue starts with another one of those monologues by Thrawn.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes into Vanto saying how he's reading the diary of Thrawn that Thrawn left him. So it kind of implies that each one of those starts of the chapter was part of the diary that he left for.
Oh, interesting.
And Vanto is on a ship traveling through hyperspace. It kind of hints at it being the unknown regions. He comes out of hyperspace and someone hails him, and it's some commander from the Chiss Ascendancy. And he's like, I'm the one that Thrawn sent. And they're like, oh, welcome. Let us learn together. And that's the end of it.
Oh, shit, dude.
Yeah. So Vanto goes from this guy who was pretty much nothing to being someone that was sent to the Chiss Ascendancy to teach them some
about the Empire.
Or that we know.
Wow.
Now,
was there and I've heard that there was like a lot of like Thrawn pretending like he was a little bitch and didn't know anything, and then and then they was like, "Oh, hey, hi, just kidding. I'm actually awesome, but I don't want anybody to know about it."
Pretty much everything he does in the book, there's some meaning behind it, and it's always like, "Oh, how did you know that was a thing?" And he's like, "I didn't know. It was the most likely scenario."
Interesting.
Like very science-minded, seemingly. Like for example, when he got beat up, he knew that he could beat the shit out of him.
But he did it on purpose.
Yeah, he did it on purpose. Everything he does for a reason throughout the entire book. Wow. It's really crazy. Now, so that's essentially the book, and I think it would be remiss for me to not bring up the next book, Star Wars Alliances.
Right. This is the whole point we're doing this data dump now, is because the next book in the series is about to be released.
Yes, and they touch on... I'm not exactly 100% sure about what this is going to be and how the timelines play out, because I believe a lot of this is going to go into, it's called Alliances. I think a lot of it's going to go into
just
the
like
Alliance.
What? The Thrawn Alliances is the name of the book?
Thrawn Alliances. It's going to go into the Alliance, I think, formed by Thrawn and Skywalker during the Clone Wars. So
it's going to be a bit of a backpedal.
I think so. And I think Padme actually ends up in this book. I don't know how or when. I remember seeing... I think there's 2 excerpts that showed up on StarWars.com. I'll link to both of them in the show notes. And one of them is Skywalker meeting Thrawn for the first time.
No shit.
It's very short.
So this is more of a prequel book than a sequel, really? Or is it going to jump back and forth? We don't know.
I don't know. Okay. It sounds like it might be a prequel book. But I'm super amped about it. I'm totally going to buy it as soon as it comes out, because we are recording this 2 days before it comes out.
Yeah, and I'm totally going to listen to you tell me all about it.
Next Holocron Data Dump.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's it. I think, I jumped around a little bit there. So, if you have any questions, go shoot them at me. Listeners, if you have any questions, feedback, suggestions on how I can better do that so that it's not jumping around so much, shoot us an email.
Hey,
RoTKast at gmail.com.
Listen. That was awesome. I learned a lot about it. I didn't know anything about that book. I liked Thrawn. I remember when I first heard about him, didn't know a ton about him. Fell in love with him during Rebels. Knew he was a badass when they first introduced him. But really, really a badass. And his backstory proves 100%. That just a ton.
Yep.
So the new book comes out here
July 24th.
July 24th.
Bookstores everywhere. Audible.com. Audible, if you want to be one of our sponsors, I'll totally accept that. I love Audible.com. Go get one. A membership if you don't have one.
We're big fans of Thrawn. I'm sure I know that a bunch of you are. So go out and buy the book, you guys. It's going to be awesome. I'm not going to read it because I'm not a book reader, but Aaron's going to read it, and 100%. We're going to learn all about it. You should too. Well, guys, thanks for joining us. That does it here for our first episode of a Holocron Data Dump. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned a lot about Thrawn. I know I did. And go buy the new book. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll talk to you on the next one.